everyone, I'm your astrologer Wonder Girl, taking you to new heights. This is your horoscope for the full moon in Libra, which is happening on April 7th, 2020 at 10:34 p.m. Eastern Time or 7:34 p.m. Pacific Time. What I think this full moon is really all about, it's about us finding our balance after so many things in our lives has recently changed, or about finding a new sense of balance, a new normal in some way, shape, or form. If this full moon isn't about us finding a new normal or a new sense of balance after so many things in our life have shifted in a major way, then also with Libra being the sign of relationships, this could also be about us working with relationships. But I like to think us working with relationships in a different, better, more fair and equal way than perhaps we have in the past, now that we're getting a sense of how things are changing and of who we want to be. However, I should note that before we can find this balance and these better relationships, which I do believe this full moon in Libra promises in some way, we may have to go further into the change, and things may have to get more crazy, more hectic, more out of balance before they come back into balance, and before we work things out in the ways that we need in order to bring everything together that's less crazy. So that's what I'm going to talk about today in this video. Now, I'm going to go ahead actually and jump right in. So the first thing that I like to do when I give my horoscopes is to actually place where the full moon is on the chart so that you can understand how I say what I say and how I come up with all this stuff. So the first thing that I'm going to do is look for where the moon is. The moon is right here at 18 degrees Libra. How do I know that this is a full moon? Because this moon in Libra is exactly opposite the sun, which is at 18 degrees of Aries. What are full moons all about? Full moons are all about ending things. If not ending things, then it's also about completing things. I think completing things that we started 6 months ago at what? The last new moon in Libra that we had then. So we're completing the things that we started 6 months ago at that new moon in Libra, okay? Or ending those things so that we can focus on other stuff. What are we completing and what are we ending? Well, with the moon in Libra, what does Libra have to do with? I said this a bit in my introduction. Libra has to do with balance. It's symbolized by the scales in astrology. So what are we stepping into, completing? We're stepping into a different sense of balance. I think a new sense of balance in our lives that we were working on really since the new moon in Libra last year. Okay, not only are we stepping into a very different sense of balance in our lives, but we're also ending an old sense of balance that was not working for us, or that is not going to work for us anymore now that so many things in our lives are different. Okay. Also, Libra has to do with relationships, being the major relationship sign of the zodiac as well. So this can also be us, what do I want to say, ending some relationships or a way of relating with people that is not good for us or is not working for us or is not going to take us further in the way that we need. If it's not us ending an old way of working with relationships, and this could perhaps be us starting to step into a different way of working with relationships. And I like to think a different and better way of working with relationships that, again, back to the scales of Libra, is more fair and is more just and is more of what we need for this situation. Okay. Now, before I like to go any further about the full moon and about what aspects are making, I always like to go back, for those of you that have been watching me for a while, to give you the context of how and why we got here and the story, because I think that is so important. So before I go any further about what this full moon in Libra is about now and in the future, I'm going to go backwards. Okay, what I'm going to go backwards is, of course, to our good friends, or my good friends, Saturn, Pluto, and now Jupiter. What is this about? I'm going to start actually with Saturn and Pluto, because Jupiter's kind of like a new thing involved in this alignment. I'm going to go back to Saturn and Pluto. Saturn and Pluto came conjunct in January of this year. It's a rare alignment because these two planets both move fairly slowly and only come conjunct every 35 years. Okay, so in January of 2020, and in the months leading up to January of 2020, which would have put us back to most of 2019, I think since April of 2019, what we were trying to do is do the Saturn-Pluto thing. We were trying to change Pluto The structure of our lives, Saturn. Not only the structure of our lives, but the big direction that our lives is going in as well, with both of these planets being in Capricorn. We are trying to change the structure and the direction of our lives so that we could what? Overcome old 35-year patterns in our lives, because that's how long, again, it takes Saturn and Pluto to come exact. To overcome old 35-year patterns in our lives that either we didn't like and were just bad for us and that we just are trying to escape from, or so that we could just leave the past 35 years behind, not because they were bad, but because they no longer resonate with us. So in between, well, really all of last year, most of last year, 2019, in between April of 2019 and January of 2020, we were trying to change our lives in a massive way, because this is not a common alignment. Change our lives in a massive way to overcome old 35-year chapters, decade-long chapters. I can give you a lot of other time frames too, but to overcome old chapters in our lives so that we could what? Step into new and different ones. Okay. The new and different chapter that's going to be here with us for the next 35 years. Now that the old 35 years is gone, because now that the old 35 years is gone, we have to create a new karmic cycle that is going to be with us. That new 35-year cycle, free from the old 35 years, I believe started about 2 weeks ago at the new moon in Aries. In between January of 2020 and April of 2020, we were still dealing with old karmic stuff because we were on what? The last 3 signs of the zodiac. But the new moon in Aries is the start of the astrological new year. It's the first sign of the zodiac. And at the same time we had the new moon in Aries, we had Jupiter and Pluto starting to come exact. So what happened is that in between, do I want to say January of 2020 and now, or 2 weeks ago, the new moon in Aries, we were finally packing the bags of the past 35 years, sending it on its merry way, and focusing now on the next 35 years and what's to come, and on making that shift and making that switch and making those big changes to get this new story that we're now embarking on the road. And that has created a lot of chaos in our lives, okay? I say chaos because Pluto's involved and because Jupiter's there expanding the stuff that Pluto brings. And Saturn was there as well. So that could have brought a lot of chaos in our lives the past 3 months, and even longer than that, as we tried to get rid of a bunch of old karmic stuff and make a bunch of rearrangements in our life all across the board to set us up for a bunch of new things. And the full moon in Libra is saying, okay, now that the change is here to overcome the old, and now that we're stepping into the new life, and now that things are being rearranged, and now that we are starting to, I don't know if I want to say come to the end of the change. I think there's probably still a lot more to go of that. But now that we are in the middle of it all, now that we are in the middle of the change, now that we are done with the past, and now that we are starting to create what's next, we got to bring things back into balance. We have to find our bearing in this different space, because if things are constantly change, up in the air all the time, it's going to be hard to create anything worthwhile. It's hard to create anything worthwhile when you don't know what's going to go on and what's next and what's happening and where things are going. So the full moon in Libra is saying, look, there are still some things in our lives that we need to shift, still some things in our lives that we need to create for the next 35 years that are left to come, but we need to find our balance in this new and different space now that so much has changed, so that we can harness all these changes and move forward in the ways that we need and connect with the people who can help us move forward in a more balanced way. All right, I know that was very complicated, but the story itself is kind of complicated and is a bit of a long one, but I wanted to give you the context of what's going on there. So maybe just to clarify that and to repeat it really for myself, I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, this full moon in Libra so far, to bring everything together, is about us finding a new sense of balance in our lives and a new way of working with relationships that's going to be better for us. Why are we finding a new sense of balance in our lives and a new way of working with relationships? Because Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter. Because so much in our lives has changed the past few months to overcome 35-year chapters that we didn't like or no longer want, and to set us up for the next 35-year chapters that are to come. And because we are now more in the next 35 years than in the past karma, packing its bags, sending it away. Now that we are more in the next 35 years than the old 35 years, we have to get settled in this different space the best that we can so that we can actually create something worthwhile out of it that we want and need and will be beneficial for us, okay? So that's the context to lead us up to this point. Now, where are we now and onwards? I want to talk about the aspects that the full moon itself is making. This full moon is actually making a square to the Pluto-Jupiter stuff that I was just talking about. Okay, you can see the moon here, 18 degrees Libra, making a square over here to Jupiter and Pluto in Capricorn. That's about what, 6 degrees? Maybe for some people that's kind of far, but to me that counts as being an orb. Not only is the moon in Libra squaring Jupiter and Pluto, but because the sun is exactly opposite the moon, it also means what? That the sun is squaring Jupiter and Pluto as well. What does this make Jupiter and Pluto? The focal point of a T-square. What is a T-square? When you get two planets that oppose each other squaring the same planet. To me, what happens when you get a T-square is that it forms an arrow, the way I like to think of it, an arrow. So if I were to draw the tip of the arrow here, there's a huge point. Where is this arrow pointing to? Jupiter and Pluto, which are exactly conjunct around this time. Okay, what does that mean when the arrow is pointing to the tip of this T-square to Jupiter and Pluto? In my opinion, what it means is that the promise of the full moon, the opposition cannot be fulfilled, cannot be completed until the Jupiter-Pluto stuff is worked out first. So what that means is that before we find the full moon in Libra, before we find the balance, the harmony in our lives, a new normal, a new way of working in our lives that's better now that so much has changed. Okay, before we can find not only the better balance, but the better relationships, working with people we already know better or working with new people that are going to be better with us. Before that can happen, we have to what? We have to get a handle on this new life that we're stepping into and on all the massive changes that we're making in order for that to happen. Okay? Not only does it mean that we're going to have to get a handle on it, but it also means a lot of times, especially because moon square Pluto and Jupiter is not really a positive, not really always an easy alignment. What it can also mean is that the changes that we're currently experiencing in our life to set us up for the next 35 years of what's to come may have to get worse before it gets better, may have to get bigger before it gets better. More changes may need to happen. They may need to get more overwhelming. Okay? But once these changes get overwhelming, reach, I don't know if I want to say their maximum, because there possibly could be still more to come, but once these changes get blown out of proportion, so to speak, or get out of hand in some way, or become a lot, once we change so many things in our lives, then we're going to start to feel things come back down. It's a weird mix of opposites, do I want to say, at this full moon. In order to feel balanced, we have to feel unbalanced. That's starting to come in here. Okay. And sometimes, just a little side note that came to me, sometimes I think that that's the way that real balance actually happens in life. Can you say that you found balance in life when there's nothing challenging you to find balance? No. What you can say is not that your life is balanced, but that your life is easy. To me, balance is found in the hardship, in the hard times. The only time you really need balance is when things get hard, is when things get out of balance. Otherwise, you don't need balance. So there's another thought that just came to me about this full moon. Balance is necessary because we don't have it, and because so much is going on that we're being challenged to find it. Okay? We're being challenged to find it. We don't need balance during easy times. Times are just easy. Now we got to find it. How do we find the balance? So that's my next point. Okay, fine. I get it. I get it, Wonder Girl. I can't get balance in my life until these changes get overwhelming, until I make things worse before they get better, till things get more out of hand. Okay, how does one thing turn into the other? How does the chaos turn into how does it happen? Well, my next point is going to be right here with Mars conjunct Saturn. Maybe I'll erase my chart. Okay. Mars was conjunct Saturn a little bit before this full moon in Libra occurred, but it's still happening. What is Mars conjunct Saturn about? Well, whenever I see planets usually conjunct or square Saturn, my first thought is decisions. We need to make decisions. What do we need to make decisions about? Well, now with both of these planets in Aquarius, our future, what we ultimately want to create long term. So how do we take chaos, craziness, much change, which is happening to an extreme degree, and create balance and harmony and peace out of it? Well, we make Mars conjunct Saturn choices and decisions. Choices and decisions about what? About what we ultimately want our lives to be. Not what we want our lives to be right now, but about what we ultimately want to create in the future. That could be hard. Why could it be hard? Because Saturn is a restricting planet. We don't want to think about the future. We want to think about now. We want to get things done now. We want to feel good now. So that could be a little bit hard as well, especially because Mars is like a planet of impulse. I just want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. So there could be this feeling of, that's frustrating. Not only is all this chaos and change in my life to an extreme degree, but now I got to think long term in order to fix it all, in order to bring it back into balance. Okay. Another reason why that could also be hard too is because to me, Aquarius, now I've drawn over the symbol, maybe here it is because Aquarius also has to do with the future. It also has to do with innovation. It also has to do with what? Things that are unknown. The future is unknown. Innovation are things we've never experienced and done before. So there's this feeling of, oh my gosh, so many changes are going on in my life. So many things are very chaotic. In order for me to bring the chaos down so that I can get balance, I have to make hard decisions about my future when I just want to do things right now. And not only do I have to make hard decisions about my future, but I don't know what the future is. I have to make hard decisions about things I don't even know. Things I don't even know. Things that I don't even know how they're going to end up, how they're going to change, how it's going on. That could feel very, very hard. Okay, but we're having to learn here to make the decisions with the information that we have to the best of our knowledge that we can, so that we can bring everything back down to center, to where it needs to be to move on. Do I want to recap that before I add another piece to the puzzle? Yes, I do. I like to recap. I got tons of planets retrograde natally in my chart. I like to review. I like to recap. I like to repeat. My mom tells me all the best teachers repeat themselves. So far, what's been going on is that we're trying to find more balance in our lives and to work with people in better ways after so much in our lives has recently changed. Okay. But in order for us to find the balance in our lives and to work with people better, we may have to expand the change, go further into the change, further into the chaos, further into the upheaval, so that we can make sure things are shifting. Okay. Once we go further into the chaos and further into the upheaval, the point is not to get lost into this spiral of constant change. The point then is to maximize the chaos and then decide with the limited information we have about what we think we want our future to be and what opportunities we want to pursue. Okay. Then once we go into the change and make the decisions, eventually the balance will start to return and things will start to flatten out, or things will start to level. Okay. That summarizes everything I've talked about so far. The next thing I then want to mention is going to be what else the full moon is doing. The full moon. Oh, do I want to go there yet? No, I don't. I just thought I should probably mention this first. Okay. After Mars conjunct Saturn, it's then going on, which is actually probably more exact. Not probably, it is more exact at this full moon. Is after Mars conjunct Saturn, it's then going to go into a square here with Uranus and Taurus, and a sextile with Chiron and Aries. Okay, so this is another confirmation to me, just to explain to you more of what's going on in the astrology. This is another confirmation to me that once we go into the chaos, make the decision, not only is balance going to return, but with Mars square Uranus, we're going to start to break free from things that we don't like, that aren't working, and step into other things that are going to feel more liberating to us, more meant for us, and actually work for us right now with the skills that we have, with the talents that we have, with the resources at our disposal, and with the sextile to Chiron and Aries that are going to help us heal and become different. So to me, it's like on the other side of this change in our lives and these hard decisions very soon after this full moon in Libra is a clearing with the square to Uranus, is an opening, is a sense of liberation and freedom to create something very different for our lives that we feel is uniquely meant for us, and that's going to help us move onwards. Okay. Now, the alignment I want to go back to and talk about is going to be another aspect this full moon is making. Here's the full moon, the moon in Libra, opposite the sun in Aries. This full moon in Libra is also making a quincunx over here to both Mercury and Neptune in Pisces. What can this bring? Well, a quincunx is a challenging alignment between two planets and two signs that don't see eye to eye. What is the problem with this? Well, the moon is in Libra. What is Libra? Again, it's an air sign. It's a sign about balance. The moon's about emotions. We're trying to balance our emotions. We're trying to balance our emotions, and we're not trying to be emotional about things. You know, Libra, air sign, I'm not emotional. This is about the facts. This is about logic. This is about the information that I've received. But even though we're trying to balance everything out, to not be so emotional about the chaos and the change and the decisions that we have to make, which may be hard to find at first, there's a lot of feelings that are weighing on us with the Mercury, Neptune, and Pisces. There's a lot of sadness, a lot of fear, a lot of grief, a sense of loss, a sense of insecurity, a sense of confusion, and a sense of haze that's going on, making perhaps all of this a little bit more challenging. Good and bad, good and bad. You know, the good thing about this full moon in Libra is that emotional balance is coming, balance in our lives is coming, and people are there to help in positive ways. And we're starting to work with people better. The bad news is that before we can get to this emotional balance, balance in our lives, and balance with relationships, things have to get worse, crazier, harder. We have to make some more decisions and more emotional, okay, with the quincunx to Mercury and Neptune in Pisces. That means that before we return things to a new normal, we may feel an extreme sense of sadness, of loss, of confusion that we're going to have to learn how to overcome. We're going to have to learn here how to not let the sadness and this confusion and these emotions get the best of us as we make the decisions that we need in order to move on. Especially too, not only while the moon's in Libra, but also while Saturn and Mars is in Aquarius, another air sign. So with the Saturn, Mars, and Aquarius, this is saying we have to make decisions based on our future and based on our intuition, but not with the fears. We're having to make decisions about our future free from the confusion and the fears of our little selves. And we're going to have to tap into a higher self that's more clear, even if we don't know the exact answers of what's going on, in order to move forward. So I feel like I just explained that kind of confusingly, which makes sense because this is a Mercury, Neptune thing that I'm talking about. But the main point of this alignment is just saying, look, we're trying to find balance in our lives. It's there. We're going to get to the balance. But before we can get to the balance, a lot of chaos, a lot of heavy emotions, sad, fearness, confusion, loss that we could be going on inside is a little bit of a pressure cooker that we're going to have to learn how to rise above and how to break through so that we can make decisions about what we want our future to be the best that we can without having all the information, and return things back to normal. Not the same normal, a new sense of normal that's different than what we have ever experienced before, or down at least to a more manageable level for us. Okay, another thing as well that I want to point out about the Mercury conjunct Neptune and Pisces as well is that if this were to go another way, if Mercury conjunct Neptune wasn't all about emotion, sadness, confusion, worry, the past, then Mercury conjunct Neptune, especially now that Mercury is going direct through Neptune after being in Pisces, after being retrograde there, this can also bring a vastly different perspective on life. I don't know if I quite want to say a change of heart, but can bring, maybe I will, for lack of a better term, a change of heart, a vastly different perspective on our life, and an upgraded set of thoughts and belief systems. Okay, after we go into the chaos to change our lives, okay, and go into the emotions and make the decisions about what path we want to commit to for the next 35 years, then instead of us spiraling out of control, we're going to balance our emotions, and Mercury, Neptune, we're going to have a vastly different perspective on our life that's healthier and that's stronger, that's going to help us do what needs to be done and move forward and want to move forward and want the next 35-year cycle that it is that we are creating. Another reason why I think that too is because after Mercury makes this conjunction to Neptune, it's going to sextile Jupiter and Pluto in Capricorn. So right on the other side of all this intense change and confusion and emotions and heavy decisions, I really do feel is a clearing and an opening and a way forward that we're going to desire, we're going to want, and we're going to be more excited about. Another reason why I feel that too is because of the last alignment that I'm going to mention in this video is Venus. At the time of this full moon, Venus isn't connected to the full moon, but it is making a trine over here to Saturn and Aquarius. And what is this about? Venus in Gemini, I believe, is about us still with the Mercury being the ruler of Gemini conjunct Neptune, still about us getting a very different perspective on our lives and about us seeing new possibilities, Saturn and Aquarius, new opportunities and new doors open up for ourselves that we didn't think were possible, that we're excited about, that we're inspired by, and that intrigue us, that are interesting to us, that we want to learn more about and perhaps experience more and try in some way, that we're making space for as well. And that I like to think with the Saturn influence that we're committing to, but committing to in a more pleasant kind of way. All right, now Venus is about to go retrograde, not quite yet, but in the next few weeks. So even though we are getting excited about new opportunities and new possibilities and want to experiment and experience them, there's still some details and things we're going to have to work out that are going to take another month or so in order for us to get on this different journey. But we are starting to make the moves in order to allow that to happen, or at least are starting to see that other things are possible for our lives than what we've been consumed with for the past 2, 3, 5, 10, 35 years. Okay, so that's what's going on there. Maybe just to recap one more time before I read the inside degrees and then pull a card, is that this full moon in Libra is about us finding more of the balance in our lives, being more cool-headed, being more calm, finding a new normal, and working better with relationships, people who get us, people who support us, people who are going to help us move on. But before we can find the balance in our lives and these better relationships, we are going to have to continue to change our lives, or to expand a big change in our lives that we've already been making to put our lives in a very different place. Expanding this change that's already been making us be new and different anyways could feel hard. It could feel overwhelming. It could feel out of control. It could make us feel sensitive. It could make us feel emotional. It could make us feel sad. It could make us feel very confused. However, if we aren't afraid to go into the confusion, into the drama, into the chaos, to continue changing our lives to be something different, we aren't afraid to go into the chaos and make a decision, listening to our higher mind and not our little worried self, we can go into the chaos and make a decision about what we want our future to be, the best that we can with the information that we have, then things are going to calm down. Things are going to flatten out. Things are going to level. We're going to find people who can help us in positive ways. We're going to upgrade our belief systems, see ourselves differently, approach the world vastly different, have a very different perspective on our lives, and we're going to start to get excited about what is to come, about our future, feeling like other possibilities and opportunities can manifest different than anything we've ever considered before, and like we have an opportunity to create something else with the skills and the talents at our disposal to make it the best that it is that we can be. Okay. Now I'm going to read I'm really only going to read one inside degrees that I like. Okay, this full moon in Libra is at 18 degrees Libra, but the inside degree that I like the best, which you can find these online, is 17 degrees Libra. I know there are tons of rules about inside degrees or guidelines and which ones you use and which ones you don't. I just follow my intuition. 17 degrees is the one I like the best, so it's the one I'm going to read. What this one says, I wrote down a few key words in my notes. 17 degrees Libra. Inside degrees says this nothing and everything going on all at once. I do believe this. Why do I believe this? Because the full moon to me is in Libra. Libra is an air sign. Air signs not about the emotions. To me, air signs are a little bit more calm. You know, maybe some of you who have Pluto in Libra and are Libras will disagree. But to me, The moon being in an air sign is about nothing going on, or it's about us learning how to find our calm, how to find our stillness. Okay, but even though the moon is in Libra, about us feeling still, finding our stillness. This full moon is square Pluto, Jupiter, and Capricorn, which is about everything going on. Big Jupiter changes, Pluto, so much happening. So there is this sense of nothing and everything going on at once. I'm calm, but I'm not at the same time. I'm calm, but I'm chaotic. I'm chaotic, I'm calm. You know, that was another thought that I had. There may be some people who feel the chaos more than the calm. There may be people who feel the calm more than the chaos at this full moon in Libra. There may be people who are feeling both, but there's a bit of that's happening both at the same time. Okay, another keyword from the 17 degrees Libra, it says tuning out the inessentials, a great insistence upon priorities. That's another thing to me about the air sign. What's going on, because everything and nothing is going on at the same time. We're having to figure out what is essential, what our priorities are, and what we need to move on. Kind of like what's going on with a lot of businesses. The inessential businesses are being closed and the essential ones are staying open. Okay. Another thing that this inside degree says is confused and lost on the surface, yet inwardly upheld. I think that was something that was kind of ties into nothing and everything going on. Okay, there is this sense where we're confused and lost in one way, yet we're inwardly understanding and clear in another way that we're trying to reconcile and bring together at this full moon. Other points that it mentions, we are tuning into themes and truths, which include the here and now. We're breathing deep of worlds not commonly perceived. And we are searching for openings in other frequencies and for new adventures to come. So there's also a thing about this full moon in Libra too, that is about us yearning for different experiences and about us doing what needs to be done to step into something very different than what we have experienced in the past. Maybe that's what I'll leave us with there. Yeah, I do believe that this is the whole thing that's going on. Maybe I didn't explain this part clearly enough, but I do believe the whole thing that's going on is that at this time in the astrology, we are stepping into a totally new life that's going to be with us for the next 35 years. And this full moon in Libra is really, especially while Mars is conjunct Saturn, is about us choosing which change we want our new life to be and making all the initiations, perhaps in the week leading up to the full moon, that we need in order for the change to be with us that we ultimately want to create. So yeah, the full moon in Libra is helping us to step into the next 35 years of our lives and create that while the going's good or while everything is already up in the air. Your card is the Devil reversed. This to me is about letting go of old emotional attachments, letting go of old things. I like that. Moon Libra air sign. And stepping into different things that it is that we need. Jupiter, Pluto. I like it. This full moon is a good time to let go of the stuff that does not serve you, to let go of the emotional stuff that's twisting at you, that's bringing you down, and to see things in a different way. That's more clear, and that, to me, with this card is a bit more healthy. The card at the bottom of the deck is the Hermit reversed. What this to me can indicate, perhaps, is, do I want to say a bit of busyness that I'm feeling right now with this card, a bit of busyness and a bit of us, like a bit of nervous energy for some reason with this card. So what I might say here is that in order for us to let go of the bad habits, the bad feelings, the things that no longer serve us, that we're really kind of kicking at anyways, we may need to still our minds, still our soul. Perhaps we might even still, do I want to say go inward, since I know we're all like stuck in our homes. We might need to go inward in order to figure that out. I suppose another message too of the Hermit can also be spending too much time alone. So maybe that's another thought that I can give. Maybe some of us, in order to get rid of the bad habits that we've had, need to still our mind and still the chaos and the craziness that we're feeling so that we can make better decisions and separate from the stuff. And maybe there are others of us who have spent too much time alone and too much time in our heads and need to spend some time out of our heads doing things in a different way so that we can break through. It just depends on what your needs are. Maybe we're too worried, need to still. Maybe, maybe some of us, stillness doesn't work, and maybe we need to do things in order to calm the worry. But there is this sense of finding the right balance here between your thoughts and your spirit in order to move on that I think will be necessary. So that is your forecast for the full moon in Libra. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you tomorrow.